Hi, I'm Alice and I'm the founder of BelongCon, and I am here in my living room tonight via Zoom with the wonderful Sara Osterholzer, who is the founder of the Good Business Club. If you follow Sara on social media, then you'll know all about the Good Business Club and what they do. They are a network of businesses who are committed to putting people before profit. And she is also a bit of a motorbiker and posts a lot about her adventures biking all over the world. But today we are going to talk about something slightly different. So Sara, I will hand over to you.
Amazing. Thank you, Alice, for creating this space. This is a story that, like you said, not many people have heard of, which is interesting because I talk a lot about things that I'm really passionate about. And yeah, it's been really powerful to be able to have the space to talk about something completely different, but also very impactful in my life. And where this story starts is back in 2015. And there was a moment which might seem a bit random for other people, but it was quite important, and you do remember some impactful moments in your life. So picture a Sunday afternoon. I was in my parents' living room waiting for my granddad to arrive for a little family get together, and I'd made a sandwich, avocado and bacon, I remember that really well. And I took a bite out of it and was suddenly hit by this really intense feeling. It was a bit like, I guess, like a hot flush that kind of went through my whole body. And I suddenly felt really nauseous and very overwhelmed. I remember making excuses to go and lay down for a bit, kind of hoping that that would have an impact. And it didn't. And I remember just lying in my sister's bed. My brain was just racing, or my heart kind of pounding. And in a few moments, I concluded that I was dying, which seems very, very peculiar, but that's the only thing where I can kind of express it. Like there was no logic to it. Nothing had really happened other than I eating a sandwich. But it was so certain in my head, like, this is what's happening, you are dying. And I guess what I know now is that was a panic attack, which if you've had before, you might be able to kind of understand and relate to. And if you haven't, it's really bizarre experience to have kind of gone through. And I didn't spend that afternoon with my family. I ended up kind of going home and spent the next week really in this overwhelming state of panic from the moment I kind of got out of bed to when I kind of finished the day. I was working from home at the time, so I really got away with kind of working in bed. And after a week, I kind of got to the point where I was like, this is obviously not great for me. It's not really a long-term sustainable plan. And I remember plucking out the courage to go on Google with my partner at the time to just try and figure out, like, let's put on things, like type in things I'm feeling and what comes up. And what I came across was really reassuring. So one was that it's common, like they talked about it as anxiety, and I was like, okay, great, it's not just me. And the other element that they talked about, a lot of people on different searches, was that, you know, the GP will be able to help you in some way. And I remember that moment of just being like, oh my gosh, okay, great, like it's been a shit week, but it's all right, we'll just like get past this, go and see what the GP has to be able to sort me out. Booked an appointment as soon as possible, and yeah, went to the doctors and saw a nurse first of all, who gave me some anti-anxiety tablets and said, look, the doctor can see you in a couple of hours, so come back. I remember taking the tablets and actually throwing up because I think I was like really anxious about even taking the tablets, and which is like, don't worry about those, leave those, there's be another answer when you get back. And so to this day, I'm really moved by, you know, who the doctor was and his stand actually for me, and being really authentic and really grounded in his support. But at the time, it was just the most devastating moment because I kind of prepared myself to walk back into that clinic and be given like the remedy to restore my life back to the way it was. And instead was met with a conversation about, you know, how it's really normal to have something like this. You know, there's all the stresses in the world around you, and to be impacted by this in this way is really common, and that actually something like therapy will be able to kind of, you know, change my experience a little bit. But it was really in that moment, I remember just feeling like I'd lost everything of who I was from the last, I was 24 at the time, and who I was someone who was really energetic, really happy, was super connected, a real zest for life, and all of that suddenly just felt completely ripped away from me, like never to be seen again. But for those of you who know me, you will know that that isn't where the story ends, because I couldn't be happier or accomplished more in my life than I have today.
And you've sort of touched on it briefly already, in terms of how anxiety feels and how it manifests. And obviously part of the condition of being human is that we do all experience periods of anxiety and periods of stress, and those are completely and totally common and valid emotions. But for people that haven't experienced that level of debilitating anxiety, how different does that feel in your view? Because I everyone has a different experience, and I've dealt with chronic anxiety in recurring periods throughout my life. But from your perspective, how did you know that feeling was different from times that you had experienced feelings of anxiety and feelings of stress in the past?
I think it's a really important one. Like you said, like, everyone experiences things differently, and I guess what was really interesting about the moment I shared, and why I guess it was so impactful for me, was because I'd never actually felt anxiety to that level before. So it was a completely new world for me to be experiencing it. And like I said, everyone will experience things differently. There's no right or wrong way, but there is something very different to, nerves, which I get. I still feel something in my stomach and my heart races. But the only way I can really explain and describe all of this was really like, I remember having a panic attack in my home once, which, by the way, I only had like 3 panic attacks in the whole 3 years times of being really in the intensity of it, which just highlights the having anxiety about having anxiety as well, which I think is really interesting. But in that moment I remember lying there and just thinking, I really wouldn't wish this on anyone. Like, no matter how bad of a person someone might be, like, this, no one should be able to experience this. And as I said before, that sensation of I am dying, which is so peculiar, because everyone, like, you logically know that you're not, but somehow there's this sense that you are. And I guess with like nerves, you kind of go like, oh, I've got to do a presentation. So you kind of understand you're standing outside there, all those things. But at this point, when I first experienced it, I didn't even know what had really triggered it. Like, I remember eating a sandwich. It can't really be the sandwich that triggered it, but there was something definitely happened, and there's something had changed. But when you don't know either, you're like, then also like, you have no idea of kind of like trying to logically, rationally understand it either. So you kind of go from like, oh yeah, there could be something wrong here. There might be something I need to be a little bit nervous about. But you go like straight into everything is absolutely crumbling around you, and that's just the state that you're in. And it's just really debilitating. Like, if you think about if you were nervous when you're going to like present, or like whatever the kind of common things are, like that gets in the way of things anyway, but you kind of know it's going to be like a couple of minutes, then you kind of get up there, you kind of get past it. But this sense was going to be there. Like I said, I had a whole week once of just like being in that in every single moment. And you don't want to do much either. So it kind of gets a bit overwhelming.
I completely relate to all of that, particularly like the meta anxiety, like,
yeah,
you feel anxious and then you're like, why do I feel anxious? And then the obsession of being like trying to find that reason.
Yeah.
And you're so right in that you can't rationalize your way out of it by oh, I'm anxious about this particular thing because everything's going okay. So yeah, I completely get that feeling. And in terms of kind of how did it impact on your life being in that space? So in terms of not being able to do the things that you wanted to do?
Yeah, so the form that it kind of took is what you kind of call social anxiety. So being anxious in social situations. So my way of dealing with it was, okay, great, let's limit those social situations. Especially at the beginning when I really, like I said, I had no idea really what was going on. So there was shame around it for sure, which just somehow manifested of just being shameful of being that way. there's definitely something about the vulnerability and the story I told myself around who I was because I was experiencing this. So just wanting to kind of push everyone away, really. And then if I was ever around people, more so people who I knew and were connected to, like that was really intense. So I was already living in the middle of nowhere, and working from home. And I lent on both of those things as excuses, just not to be able to go see people. And they did really well to be able to keep my safe space when I needed it. And I remember, going to the shops or like going to the therapist. I did take that up on the doctor's recommendation. And like any other rare occasion, if I went to see someone, I was kind of anxious from the moment that we put that date in the diary. So be it tomorrow or a week like away or a month away, it was just like setting the fact that I would have to see someone, and that would just build and build the closer I get to that point. So it would go from everything just being on my mind to like feeling more stressed about it, to like fully not be able to kind of be there, to the moments before where I'm like most probably would flake out. So had a friend who invited me to hen do in Bath, and I was joined a WhatsApp group and just avoided talking about anything, didn't contribute to the conversation or planning or anything around that, just wanted to completely push it away and experience like it wasn't going to happen. I think I ended up kind of contributing maybe a couple of weeks beforehand with this lovely friend who kept trying to reach out to me to like get me to put my payment down. I just didn't want to put any commitment to it at all. And then I made up excuses. I think maybe a couple of days before going, I can't remember what I said, but it was just, that was always the kind of pattern and the sense I kind of felt around it as well. So the impact really was just really being quite isolated, but kind of creating that for myself, and then also distracting myself with work, drinking as well. Did both of those way too much just to be able to kind of deal with what was going on and trying to get through each day.
And in terms of your relationships with the people around you, with your, with your partner, with your family, with your friends, how were your relationships impacted with other people?
So the biggest impact obviously would be with my partners who I was living with, and my family. So I did spend about a good year kind of cooped up in this countryside cottage in the middle of nowhere, and really barely seeing anyone but my partner who I lived with. And because I didn't want to talk to people about what's going on, like this shame really was a really big impact at the beginning, and being so flaky as well, like it meant that I ended up kind of like really losing touch with also friends as well. So never made time to see them. I always made all these excuses. So unsurprisingly, they probably thought I didn't really care about them, was prioritizing myself. As with most things, like social media, you kind of show good things and never the bad things. So if your friends really think you're having a good time and then not wanting to see them, they kind of potentially get a sense of why that might be. And I did the same also with my family. So I've been really close to my family my whole life, and in the same way kind of was being a bit flaky, but like they kind of gauged something was up, like they could get a sense that it kind of wasn't right. And I've been making up excuses for months and months, and then remember calling up on Christmas Day to let them know that I wouldn't be coming up. And I remember my mum just being like really like point blank, like, is there something going on? Like, I think she had a whole world of what she thought it could be, and end up plucking up the courage to kind of share with her then, because I really got that I was creating something that actually wasn't true here either, and like maybe sharing might be better than what she's kind of potentially thinking is going on. So, and like I said before, like it's hard to explain sometimes what it even is when you're trying to understand it yourself and you're trying to figure out all these like why. And the main thing I think is like really hard is to be like telling people that you love that being with them kind of causes you pain on some level, and you don't want to share that, and no one wants to hear that either. But of course it's all the fears you create around what might happen there, and actually what happens is people want to support you, and my family are amazing in what they created for me still to be connected. And I was, I guess, overwhelmed with actually how much they were happy to adapt and like put in place to make it work, that we could still be connected. And I guess it's needless to say, like for my partner, it was really tough, like, because I was really reliant on him, not just in my kind of space every day as my human to be around, to be energized by, but he'd also want to do probably a lot more than I was kind of up for doing. And if I ever kind of did say yes to doing something, I'd be kind of panicking all over the place all the time around it. And he was a real stand for me, like really compassionate, but also kind of like helped me move along the way sometimes when I needed that as well. So I remember once going to a friend's for games night, and again had this whole build up to it, and then was like driving over there, and I'd already kind of worked myself up at this point of all the worst situations that could kind of happen. And I remember walking into the door and then being like, oh no, I can't do this, and then walking back, and I did this like a couple of times with my partner at the time. And he was really great at just being like, look, let's just try it out, let's just go in, like what can we put in place? So we kind of created that, we'd go in, and if in 10 minutes I was feeling horrific, I'd just signal to him and would create excuses and leave. And I actually ended up having a great night. It was good fun, but like he had to take on quite a lot to be that supportive person, really, when I didn't have the kind of strength even to encourage myself to do things, and that would have impacted him massively.
Again, like all of that is so relatable as someone that has dealt with anxiety for much of their life as well. And it really, like you said, like right at the start, it really does have this impact of making you feel like you've lost a part of yourself, or you can't be the fullest version of yourself. And it's almost like you don't realize how miserable that's making you until you do. At least certainly that was my experience. And I didn't really get a handle on my own anxiety until about 4 years ago, until I was like 29 coming up for 30, and I was suddenly like, oh my goodness, I don't want to live my life like this anymore. I can't really pinpoint for me what it was that suddenly made me go, I can't live this way anymore. But it was impacting my life, it was impacting my job, it was impacting my relationships. And it was almost like, I say, it was like the game of Buckaroo. Like it had been all these little things piling up. And then there was one final thing, and suddenly everything flipped. And I was like, I cannot do this anymore. Something needs to change. I need to see someone. I need to talk to someone. I need to take action to move through this. So for you, was there a specific catalyst you can remember where you were like, I don't want to be this way anymore? Or was it like a Buckaroo effect as well?
Yeah, it's interesting that, for sure. So there's a moment, and I can't remember really when it happened, but in that sense of really like remembering something. So I decided to, like with my family, like tell my work colleagues about actually what was going on, because like with everyone else I was making up all these excuses not to go up. They're all working in London, and I wouldn't go up for like the group meetings. So I decided to reach out to them. I had a Zoom meeting and just shared with everyone what was kind of going on for me. And obviously, again, very understanding, compassionate, created so much again to try and like make it work for me to kind of to be with them. And after the call, one of my colleagues at the time reached out to me to share that she'd gone through something similar. And I remember sitting there and kind of asking her questions about it, and her sharing her experiencing, and I'm really getting that, she really got where I was. And then she started sharing about, where she is now, and like what she'd kind of started doing, and like what had shared and what has helped and all those things. I remember just sitting there going like, she totally gets it. And she is absolutely not in that space. Like she is not impacted the way I'm being impacted right now. And I think in the same way that like when the doctor kind of grounded in me in like, there isn't going to be like a switch and it's going to kind of all go away, she gave me the sense of possibility. Like I remember thinking, oh my God, okay, I've got this. Like I am going to create the person I want to be. I'm going to reconnect with what's important to me. And I really just gave it my all. Like I said, I went to CBT therapy that was, really powerful in understanding that kind of trigger point. Like I said before, if you don't really understand it, it can be very, very big and kind of blurry. So I got a sense of what the stories were that were kind of triggering it and getting more understanding of that. I read The Power of Now. That was, again, for anyone who's spends their time thinking over here in the past or the future too much, really powerful. and took on mindfulness practice, reconnected with yoga that I've actually grown up with my whole life, and then like let go of, and was like, this is a great time to bring that back, and meditation, and kind of little by little built up an understanding. So really got also what was happening when we were talking about panic attacks or anxiety, like what actually physically is happening, why is it happening, why are we built like that as humans, to understanding the story and how that was impacting, and all of that just gave me so much more confidence, and it empowered me to go from little steps to being braver to take bigger steps. So like I said, moments like when my partner encouraged me to go in and just really step outside my comfort zone, those are more moments I could create like that to realize there was a different possibility, were the ones I needed. So I just took more of those steps. I remember the first time driving up to London and surprised my work colleagues by visiting them. I remember like still being really anxious about it. I didn't tell anyone just in case I flaked out and would just kind of connect on Zoom. And they were just like overwhelmed with just like surprise, which was really lovely. I remember seeing my family again after a couple of months of not seeing them. I remember then not even like, not so distant past getting my first job in an office, which really like after working remotely for 3 years was just, I couldn't see how that would ever be possible. And I took on a role where I was running an accelerator. So I was literally standing in front of people delivering workshops and then like coaching people, having to be the space for other people. I remember getting my first train for the first time in 5 years of having like been way too anxious to get on trains. And also only a couple of years ago, standing up in front of 150 people to launch the Good Business Club. Like there are a few things I'd really created in terms of who I wanted to be and what I wanted to be doing that at one point in my life just did not seem plausible. And I've also kind of kept in touch with my therapist on some of these key moments and just messaged him and be like, this is what I've done today and what I've like accomplished, just to like, I guess to share that like what we'd kind of created is actually now what I'm living as well.
That is awesome, and so just incredibly inspiring. Like that moment when you get to see yourself and see something a different way, like this light bulb moment where you realize you could do something that felt impossible, is just so incredible. And I just want to say, like, to anyone that's resonated with what you shared today, like it is possible to get through this, and we've got you here in this community. That's why we're here, that's why we're having these conversations. So Sara, why was it that you wanted to share your story today? Why was that so important to you?
So like you said, exactly what you've shared really is why I'm here. Like although I am where I am, I've still definitely held a bit of shame and like fear of looking bad to share this story. But actually what you've said is like what I've reconnected with recently, of the moment that really impacted me on my journey was having someone else share, like, I've been there and now I'm here, and be able to offer that as a possibility to anyone who's sitting in that space. I just realized like that's actually what's really important. And I'm really connecting with myself recently that, actually stepping outside my comfort zone and challenging myself is now part of who I am. Like that's something that I want to support other people with. I also want to challenge myself and really get out of my comfort zone. And like you said, like see what's actually possible, like, because I've been really trapped in something that's different. So I thought if I can share this story, if anyone's out there that can, like I said, resonate at all with it and can be inspired to know that they really can create whatever they can. Like we've talked about people that have been impacted by my little life. And I think if you can support one person, they're going to impact not just themselves, but the people around them and the world around them. So if I can contribute to the world in this sense by sharing my story, that's why I'm doing it.
And you are such a contribution. So thank you so much. Conversations are so important in terms of, me moving through my anxiety. It has all been in conversation. It has all been in sharing and hearing from other people that I'm not alone, that someone else has had that same experience, that moment of like, oh my God, me too. I'm not the only one to have had these thoughts. And to hear from other people and know that it is possible to move into a space that feels so impossible is just vital. And here we are BelongCon is all about destigmatizing that entire experience of being human and being able to share this stuff without shame. So thank you so much for being part of the conversation, Sara, and for sharing your story.
And thank you, honestly, Alice. You've really given me the courage to, and you've created a beautiful space to be able to share that. So thank you for the encouragement and holding this space for us.
Thank you so much, Sara. Thank you.